My blood runs strong.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Esports Money, ZSM, Mac10, whatever you want to call me, and welcome to my new guide to jungling Bloodseeker in patch 7.06e. My goodness, we've gone through a lot of patches. Sorry I haven't been around much lately, guys. I should be back on my regular schedule starting now. I believe all of my crazy summer things have sort of gone have finished, unless I go to DreamHack this weekend, but I don't think that's happening. So anyway, this is pretty similar to my previous guide. I am remaking it because my most recent guide was 7.05, and that was back when creeps spawned half as often and gave 20% more gold. Now, I'm not exactly sure what they meant by increasing it by 10, but if I'm doing the math correctly, 10% of 80%, which is what it used to be, goes up to 88%. So creeps now give 88% of the gold and experience that they used to, and they spawn twice as often. However, that 12% is still a big deal, especially because Bloodseeker isn't a great offensive jungler, he's a good defensive jungler. What I mean by that is, you don't really worry about dying when you're playing Bloodseeker. Your limitation is how quickly can you cut down creeps. I also haven't explored this new patch too much, but I will be doing so in the future with a lot of heroes that I haven't touched on in a while, just because now there's a huge amount of creeps that give almost as much gold as they did back in 7.05. So anyway, starting items are your standard melee starting items. You're going to get an Iron Talon and a pack of Tangos. You're going to want to max your Q by level 7. Like, hands down, that's your bread and butter. In this game, this is me playing in a sandbox, and I do miss 2 stacks, so I end up getting my Midas at around 730, but if you don't miss any stacks, the best time I've had right now is about 6 minutes and 46 and 45 seconds, which is a bit worse than what we were in 7.05 by about 40-45 seconds, because back in those days, it was a 6-minute flat Midas time. You're going to grab all the bounty runes that you possibly can, and again, the perfect time, 6 minutes, 40 seconds, 45. So you're going to want to get those gloves of haste as quickly as possible, because again, you're very good at surviving in the jungle, but you don't do as much damage, and attack speed is obviously going to increase the damage that you do. I also like to get a point in my W as soon as possible, just because then you have an AoE nuke, and it doesn't do a lot of damage, but that not a lot of damage it does is pure, so it actually does a decent bit more than you would expect. So that's actually, that's pure damage, that's what it does. There's no magic resist or armor calculations done there. Another thing is, in a pub game at level 2, I will typically get a point in my E, because the global will allow your allies in lane to track low hit point enemies, and it will also give you a buff when those enemies are in low health. So, pretty solid idea to get at least 1 point in your passive, and then start putting points in your W. I'll typically leave the jungle once I hit level 6 to try to help gank. My ult's not very good, or your ult is not going to be very good at level 1, but it is enough that it will deter people from running away and still force them to make a decision on whether or not they want to stand and fight or run away and take the damage over time. But if you're fighting against a pretty tanky hero, they can just walk away because your ulti doesn't do a lot of damage at level 1. Also, be sure to have your Q cast on yourself when you use the ulti on enemy heroes. Now back to the jungle. You always want to have your Q buff on yourself whenever you last hit a creep, so if it looks like I'm jungling kind of awkwardly, that's why. I really want that buff on me when I get the last hits, because then I get the healing. Just because he's not worried about defense or not worried about survivability in the jungle doesn't mean that you can do it without any effort. However, this also works if your AoE kills monsters, just like I did like a moment ago in the video. So keep that buff on you, and this is another important detail that I'm not sure if I mentioned in my first guide. Your Q actually enhances the amount of damage that the Iron Talon's active ability does, so be sure 100% of the time you have that Q buff on you when you use the Iron Talon. Your Q's cooldown is much shorter than your Iron Talon's. It's worth it to wait to have both of them stacked together in almost all circumstances. So moving forward, I'm going to get that Midas, and then I'm going to get Treads, and then typically I'll go for something like a Sanj and Yasha. I like movement speed on this hero, and I also like things that reduce enemy movement speed. This is pretty much it. There's not a lot special here. This is a very simple, very easy to follow jungling guide. Thank you guys for watching. Real quick, I wanted to touch on my new YouTube channel, VR Force. I'm going to start posting content on there today, and that will actually have a consistent schedule. This channel is pretty much just Dota content whenever I want, which will probably be about 5-6 days a week. I'm going to try to have a consistent schedule on the new VR Force channel, and that will be used for emulation content, VR-related content, and basically all of my non-Dota stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So also, there's going to be a podcast, Still Talking to Wired, about the details of that, and I will have a schedule for that soon. That will probably be the only scheduled show for this channel, and all of my live streams will remain on this channel. So thank you guys very much for watching. Feel free to leave comments, questions, concerns in the comments below, and peace, y'all. Hey y'all, Esports Money's here, and here's my face. If you enjoyed that content, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content from me. And if you want to support the channel further, you can check out the Amazon affiliate links in the video description to buy all of the computer hardware that I own and use on a regular basis. And there's also an Amazon Prime referral link, so if you do not have Amazon Prime and are considering getting it, you can use that link. It costs you no additional money and helps support the channel. So, thanks a lot, and see y'all around.